Hey everyone, let's get started on our second video on lesson 1.2, solving linear equations part 1. Our learning target today is going to be I can solve a multi-step linear equation in one variable. Now typically the variable is going to be an x, but remember that it could be any letter that they choose or any symbol that they choose. Okay? All right, let's talk about the paperwork that you have in front of you. In your packet, you're looking for the one that says module 1.2. And then I want you to make sure that you read over this notes section that I have highlighted in pink. This is going to give you some information on the property that we're using today. So we are going to be using distributive property, right? That means that there is a value outside the parentheses and there are multiple values inside the parentheses. So for example, looking at this first one, I have A times a group. Now in this group, I have B plus C. So I am going to multiply A times B. That's going to give me AB. And then I'm going to multiply A times positive C. And that's going to give me positive AC. So distribution is multiplying the value on the outside, so the coefficient, to everything on the inside of the group. Okay? All right. Also on the bottom of the notes, we have two boxes here, one that says property of equality, one that says order of operations. You're allowed to put in any notes that you know about those two terms in there. Here's some of the notes that I did if you want to pause the video here and write any of that information down. Now, on the back side of your paper, we've got examples 1, 2, 3, and 4, and then we have two groups of check your understanding. So examples 1, 2, 3, and 4, the ones in yellow, are the ones that I'm going to do. The ones in pink are the ones that I've left for you. Now, the the exit ticket. This here is going to be done in class on Friday. So you don't have to worry about doing that here. Leave that until Friday. Okay? Now, let me talk about a couple of strategies that I put together on this lesson. First, I am going out of order because I think it's a better progression. So just pay attention to which example I'm doing, and then you follow along in your packet on which example I'm on. My next thing, the strategy that I'm going to suggest is let me work through the problem. Just watch how I work through it. Once I've got it down, then pause the video, go back and fill in your notes. But if you're looking up and looking down, you're not really processing what's happening. So just watch as I work through example 4 and then pause the video and write it down. So let's go ahead and get started with example 4. So that's on the back of your paper. Okay. So on this one here, one strategy that I use is first off, I see an equal sign. So when I see an equal sign, I like to draw what I think of as an imaginary line right through the equal sign. What that helps me do is to realize is that there's two sides of the equation. So an equation has to be balanced. So if I do something to the left side of the equation, I've got to do the same thing to the right side of the equation, or else it's no longer equal. So this imaginary line helps me to know that when I'm trying to move something from one side to the other, just make sure that I do it to both sides. Now, I don't always draw that line, but if it's something that helps you, then you've got that there. All right, so let's go ahead then and get started on this one. So I have 78 equals 6 times the factor x minus 4 plus 6. Well, I'd like to get rid of those parentheses first. So before I can get rid of those parentheses, I have to understand that that's multiplication. So with multiplication, that's when I use the distribution property, the distributive property. So I am going to distribute 6 times x and 6 times negative 4. Everything that's in the group 6 is touching. This 6 out here is not in that group in the parentheses, so I don't do anything with that one except bring it down when I need to. So when I rewrite this equation, I have 78 equals 6x minus 24, or negative 24, and then bring down positive 6. Okay, that's the distributive property first. Now, after that, I'm going to look at it and see, is there any terms that I can combine? On the left side of the equation, it is only 78. There's nothing I can combine there. On the right side of the equation, I can combine anything that has x's with anything else that has x's, or values that have no variable with values that have no variable. So negative 24 and positive 6, I can combine. So I have 6x minus 18. Now, I've got it with distribution done, terms combined. Now I've got to get x by itself. So I'm looking at this and I'm like, oh, x is attached to 6, so I can't get rid of that yet. But I can get rid of that negative 18. So what's the opposite, or what's the inverse of negative 18? That is positive 18. But if I want to get rid of it on the right side, then I have to also place it on the left side. So if I have positive 18 on the right side, I've got to put positive 18 on the left side of the equal sign. Now, 78 plus 18 makes 96 equals 6x, and negative 18 plus 18 makes 0, and that cancels out. Okay. Now, I want to get x by itself, but x is being multiplied times 6. So the inverse property of multiplying would be dividing. So I am going to divide by 6. Now, if I divide the right side by 6, I also have to divide the left side by 6. 96 divided by 6 is 16. 6 divided by 6 does not make 0, but it does reduce to 1. Okay, so we don't write 1 in front of a variable, so we just leave that out of the expression at this point, and the only thing we have left is x. So I have 16 is equal to x, which is the same thing as x equals 16. Okay, it can be written in either direction. All right, so that's example 4. Now I want to do the same process with example 3, getting x by itself, but there's not going to be any parentheses on this one. However, there is our dreaded friend, the fraction. So here's what I want to talk about. I want to talk about how do we get rid of a fraction. There are ways to get rid of a fraction. It does not mean that there won't be a fraction in our final answer, but in the beginning, we can get rid of it to make our math a little easier. Okay? So when I look at this problem, I'm going, all right, there's a fraction. What's the denominator? Because it's not the whole fraction that bothers me, it's just the denominator. So the denominator on this one is 2. So, and it's dividing by 2. So what's the opposite, or what's the inverse of dividing by 2? That would be multiplying by 2. So if I multiply everything by 2, I can get rid of a fraction. So I'm going to multiply the entire left side of the equation times 2. But to keep it equal, if I make the right side. If I make the right side 2 times bigger, I also have to make the left side 2 times bigger. Okay? So now let's go ahead and do some distribution. 2 times 5x is 10x. 2 times positive 1 is positive 2 equals. Okay, little tricky here, but stick with me on this one. Okay, we are going to do 2 times 3 divided by 2. So 2 times 3 is 6. 6 divided by 2 is 3. So I have 3x, and our fraction is gone. Now I have 2 times 8 gives me positive 16. Okay? All right, now we've got to get x by itself. But there are x's on the left side of the equation, and there are x's on the right side of the equation. So we've got to get all of our x's together first. Always move the x's first. And my suggestion is always move the smallest x. So I have 10x and 3x. The smallest one is 3x. So I want to get rid of this positive 3x. So the inverse operation would be negative 3x. Now, I cannot subtract 3x from 2 because 2 doesn't have an x. However, I can subtract negative 3x from 10x because that one also has an x. Right? So like terms have to stay together. 10x minus 3x is 7x. Bring down plus 2 equals 3x minus 3x makes 0. And then I have positive 16. Now to keep working to get x by itself, x is being multiplied to 7 and added to 2. So I'm going to get rid of the one that's furthest from it. That's positive 2. How do I get rid of positive 2? Inverse operation, I subtract 2. Whatever I do to one side of the equation, have to do to the other. Okay? Now I have 7x. 2 minus 2 makes 0 equals 14. Now 7 times x, the inverse operation, is 7, dividing by 7. And I get x equals 2. Okay? All right, so now pause the video, write down example 3, and then go ahead and go on to check your understanding number 2 and see if you can solve A and B on your own. Now the answers are there for you to check them, but if you get stuck somewhere, I want you to stop, put a question mark where you get stuck, and then write down what you think happened so I have a question to answer tomorrow. Pause here, do those, and then come back and see me. Okay, let's go ahead and go back, and now we're going to go to example number 1. Okay, now on this one, there are no fractions, but there is distribution on both sides of the equal sign. Okay, so we've got to do that distribution first. So I have negative 2 times x gives me negative 2x. Negative 2 times negative 3 gives me positive 6. On the right side, I have 4 times x gives me 4x. And when I distribute 4 times 1, that gives me positive 4. Now, I want to get all the x's to the same side. In this example, the worksheet has all the x's going to the left side. So how do I get rid of positive 4x? I subtract 4x. Inverse operation says whatever I do to one side, I have to do to the other because you're moving it to the other side. So negative 2x minus 4x gives me negative 6x. Bring down the positive 6. 4x minus 4x goes away. That makes 0. Bring down the positive 4. Now to keep going, to get negative 6x by itself, I'm going to subtract 6 and subtract 6 from both sides of the equal sign. So then I've got negative 6x equals negative 2. 6 minus 6 makes 0, or sorry, cancels out when it makes 0. 4 minus 6 makes negative 2. Then I've got to divide both sides by negative 6. Remember that a negative divided by a negative is a positive. 2 6 reduces to 1/3. Okay. All right, pause the video, write that down, and then come back and let's work on number 2. All right, so this one here is going to be our really, our problem that has fractions. It pulls it all together. That's why I wanted to put this one off till the end. It takes distribution and fractions and moving variables from side to side all the way to the end. So let's see how we do on this one. Okay? Very first thing, I notice that I have parentheses on the left side, parentheses on the right side. So we're going to do some distribution on both sides of the equal sign. Now there are fractions. So I have to do the distribution that's already there before I try to get rid of the fraction. Okay? So let's go, well, there's other ways to do it too, but let's do that way first. Okay? So I've got negative 2 times 1/3. And then that x is there. Okay? So negative 2 times 1 is negative 2. And negative 2 divided by 3, since we can't do it nicely, we're just going to leave it as negative 2 divided by 3. Negative 2/3 x. All right, distribution again. Negative 2 times negative 4 gives me positive 8. On the right side, 2 times x gives me 2x. 2 times positive 1 gives me positive 2. All right, now that I've got it where the distribution is done first, now I can get rid of that fraction. So to get rid of the fraction, we have to figure out what's in the denominator and multiply the entire thing by the denominator. So in this case, our denominator is 3. So we're going to multiply the entire fraction or the entire equation on the left side and the right side by 3. Okay, so let's think about this. 3 times 2 is 6. 6 divided by 3 is 2. That's where they get this 2 from. How come it's negative? Because there was a negative symbol out front. So 3 times negative 2 is 6, or negative 6, and negative 6 divided by 3 is negative 2. Voila, our fraction's gone. Now we're going to do 3 times 8. That gives me positive 24. That's the left side. Got rid of the fraction, but we still have to multiply that right side times 3. 3 times 2x is 6x. 3 times 2 is positive 6. Okay, no more fractions. Now we can start moving things from the left side to the right side. So how do I get rid of negative 6x? So if I want to subtract negative 6x from the left side, and I subtract negative 6x from the right side, or the right side and the left side, got it backwards, then that gives me negative 8x plus 24 equals 6. So now I have to move the 24 to the other side. So subtract 24 from the left side. Now I got it right. Subtract 24 from the right side. And that gives me negative 18. On this side, we still have negative 8x. Now to get x by itself, I have to get rid of the negative 8. How do I get rid of the negative 8? Well, now I have to divide by negative 8. Divide by negative 8. And I get x equals negative divided by a negative is a positive. So we have x equals positive 9 over 2. Okay? All right. So that's it for this one here. I want you guys to go on to check your understanding 1. Try this one. Try it. Challenge yourselves. The answer is x equals 31. See if you can get there. Otherwise, stop where you get, put a question mark, and write down what stopped you. Okay? All right. See you in class.